Books make you hope. Books make you dream. Books make you laugh. Books make you scream. This is the Books That Make You show, discussing books with authors and experts, unraveling the inner pages of all the books that help make us who we are.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Desiree Duffy, and I'm the host of the Books That Make You show. And we're talking about books that make you get ready to become a young dad. We often hear the struggles that young moms go through. Parenting is full of challenges and plenty of unknowns, and it can be tough. Young dads need guidance and support too. Our author today is Jay Hall. He is an author, educator, podcaster, and all-around family guy. Jay recently released his first book, God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad, 10 Essentials for Becoming the Dad Your Kids Need. Part inspiration, part education, part application. The book highlights 10 important characteristics that every dad needs and provides practical tips for developing these both in their lives and in the lives of their children. Additionally, the book features a 30-day devotional guide to encourage readers to think about and begin to practice the essentials that are discussed in the book. Now, Jay is also the Dean of Social Sciences at Oklahoma City Community College, and he teaches sociology since 2021. He is also the host and the producer of the Okie Bookcast, which is a podcast dedicated to connecting curious readers with their next great reads. And he interviews authors all the time. So we're flipping the tables on you here, yep. Jay. You're on the other side of the microphone, so to speak. How you doing?
I'm good, Desiree. I'm so excited to be hanging out with you and talking books today.
Oh, I'm excited to have you. So let's get to it. Tell us about your book. Give us the lay of the land.
Sure. So God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad. And I won't get into the whole long subtitle again. You know, that's one of those things they tell you about, especially independent publishing, is don't have long titles. And we've thrown that out the window. God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad is really a book that came about when I found out that I was going to be a grandfather and started thinking about what my son needed to know, or what I hoped that I had taught him as his dad, as he got ready to be a dad himself. And so it's really, as you said, it's 10 big ideas that I think are essential for young men to become the great dads that their kids need. And so, you know, our kids need dads who are loving and who are joyful and who are thankful and present, all these kinds of things. And it's designed to really hit the three big ideas, to introduce what these things are, to then think about just how we develop them in our lives. And then really the application side of it to me was very, very important, to think about how does this look like practically in the life of a 30-year-old dad who is trying to survive a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and work and do all of that. But then also how to help that same dad help begin to build those things into the lives of their kids. Because just like we need dads who are loving and joyful and compassionate, we are trying to raise kids who are loving and joyful and compassionate. And so the goal really is to help dads develop this stuff in their own lives, because we're the model, but then also have some practical steps that they can use in their families to help their kids grow into these things as well.
Yeah. And you are a young grandfather too.
I am.
So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm a very young grandfather.
Very young. Yeah, I like that. So can you talk a little bit about just getting into the heart of the book and the way that you encourage young dads across the board?
Sure. So much of what dads get is, hey, you're not quite doing it right. I mean, I always joke that, Mother's Day at church is we honor you, we love you, you're the best. And Father's Day at church is, guys, we need to talk. And so I really wanted to create something that wasn't just, guys, we need to talk. Because I think young dads, we live in this world that is telling us every way we're doing things wrong and all the different ways that we can mess stuff up. And I think young men, I still need to hear, hey, you're doing all right. You're doing okay. So a couple of the big ideas that I really wanted to drive home. One is that God didn't mess up when he put you as the father to your kids. Sometimes we look at our kids and think, I don't know what to do with this one. I have 4 kids. And so I have a couple that we're not exactly compatible personalities, but I am the perfect person to be their dad. And so I really want, we have these moments of what am I doing? And I want dads to believe God didn't mess up. You're supposed to be there. You're the perfect dad for that child. But I also, as I was thinking about my son and him becoming a father and just all of these different things that we want to be true of our lives, I kept coming back to 2 Peter 1:3, where the Bible says God gives us everything we need for the godly life he wants us to live. And man, that's so incredibly encouraging, because what that means is I don't have to stir this stuff up in myself. So I think the recurring theme and the thread all the way through the book is, yes, we need to have love. Yes, we need to be thankful. Yes, we need to have compassion, but we don't have to just gut that up in ourselves. That God gives us those things so that we can be joyful, so that we can be compassionate, so that we can be thankful. And I hope, for me, that's a tremendous encouragement, because it means I don't have to do it. It means I've got a source for those things that is beyond myself that I can tap into. And so then it's just a matter of working towards that.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate how that message of you're the perfect person to parent this child, because it can, you got 4 kids, and I kind of caught the subtext there. Sometimes you're like, wait, I'm a grandma too. And you're like, wait, where is this coming from? This personality is diametrically opposed. It kind of goes back to that nature versus nurture debate, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's something going on with nature, but embracing that and realizing, hey, this is a child and you're the perfect person to parent that child. I love that.
And we don't always see it initially. I think about, so it's interesting. My daughters are exactly like me, to their detriment, probably in some ways. And so my wife looks at some of the things they do and think, man, I don't, there are great stories, especially when they were young, about my wife just looking at what my child did, looking at me and saying, that one's you, good luck, and leaving the room so that I could sort it out. But my sons and I are very different in terms of personality. But as I have, thought about this and just thought through the progression of their lives, and they're mostly adults now, I was the right person, even though we were so very different. There were things that they needed to see from a different perspective, or needed to hear from a different perspective. And so again, it's a beautiful thing, the way that God puts this stuff together. He doesn't mess up. It's you are where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. There's intention behind it. I appreciate too, a lot of times self-help books are geared more toward women, or books of this nature are geared more toward women, or we often talk about the struggles of the young mom, but you're basically validating and saying, hey, dads, it's okay. You need this help too.
There's just this idea, and it's not new, that guys are tough, guys can figure it out, guys. And in some instances, it's just that men aren't really supposed to be that, and boy, I hope you hear the air quotes, that engaged in the lives of their families, right? They go and they make money and they show up and, do whatever they do at dinner. And, it's always wait till your dad gets home, that kind of stuff. But there's not always that encouragement of really, really being engaged in the whole life of your family. And man, I want to encourage, in fact, the last words of the book are keep showing up, right? That I really just want to encourage dads. Our kids need us, our wives need us, our families need us to be present, and also to not just be present in terms of our location, but present in terms of our action and our intention and our affection and all those things that have to be a part of showing up. That it's not just being in the same place and everybody on their devices, but it's being there and being present and being a part. And one of the things I tried to be intentional about was that the book wasn't going to be very long. You see self-help books that are 250, 300 pages. Like, I don't have time. The fact that I need help indicates that I don't have time to read all of that. So the goal really was to make it something that is easily digestible. The chapters are 6 to 8 pages. In fact, I say in the introduction, it's meant to be read slowly so that we can think about this stuff and really begin to build it into our lives, instead of just blowing through it and checking the box and saying, okay, I've done that. Now I can move on to the next thing.
And this is really the kind of book too that you keep around and refer to again and again. It's not, I've read it and I'm going to go stick it on my shelf. This is something that dad can leave right by his nightstand, pick it up, read a little bit, reread it, over and over again before he goes to bed or when he wakes up in the morning.
I hope that's true. That certainly was the intention. And that's part of why I built the devotional into the book, so that you're reading a chapter. And then really, if you do it the way it's designed, and I know people read the way they're going to read, if you do it the way it's designed, you read a chapter and then you spend the next 3 days going through those devotionals, thinking about that big idea, whatever it was, and then moving on to the next one. And so, 6 months from now, when you're thinking about something, to be able to pull that back off and read very quickly, here are the things, or here are the applications. Because some of the challenge is that when you're talking about young dads, it's everybody from my son, whose son is now 6 weeks old, I think. I should know that immediately off the top of my head. To dads that have kids that are 10 or 12 years old, and it looks different. Right? The way that looks for my son at this point in this stage is very different than what it looks like. And I would argue, even though the book's written specifically for young dads, I'm 52 years old, my oldest is 26, and I'm still needing to live these things out with him and in front of him to help him continue to learn and grow, even as an adult and a father himself.
Yeah. Let's segue over and talk a little bit about the process and the craft of writing. I'm curious, Jay, what did you learn about yourself as a writer while you were penning this book?
I wrote this book really fast. Because I wanted to have it done by the time my grandson was born. And so I had an absolute deadline that this had to be done. Now, Best Laid Plans of Mice and Men, he came 2.5 weeks early, so it didn't get out by the time that he was around, but pretty quickly thereafter. I have, through the process of talking with lots of people on the podcast and kind of becoming a part of this writing community, lots of encouragement. I've seen lots of people attack this in different ways. And so the day that I started, I literally I took my computer and I sat down at a coffee shop just to see if I could do it. Could I write a chapter that made any sense? And lo and behold, I could. And I think a couple of things. One, that I was surprised at how much I enjoyed the process of doing it. Because my only real writing up and prior to that was working on my PhD, and that academic writing is not quite as much fun as what I get to do now. So really recognized that was a lot of fun. But I think one of the things that that captured me was putting the pieces together. And, so thinking about, okay, if this is a chapter on compassion and I want to do this story and I want to have this content from the Bible and I want to think about what the application looks like. And so it really allowed me to write in chunks, which was very helpful because I am not a very, I'm not a terribly structured person. I'm not somebody who is, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to write for these 3 hours and these are my 3 hours and I'm going to knock out this many words. It just doesn't work like that for me. So I'm very much, picking up pieces that I can. And the structure of the book allowed me to sit down and say, okay, I can't write, 2,000 words today, but I can write this application section. And then just little by little put that together and was able to construct the book in about 6 weeks, and then started the editing process and getting things ready for publishing.
So, and now that you're a writer, are you going to be putting out more books? What's coming up in the future?
So starting the next one, I always had in mind this idea. Once I got in mind this idea of God help me, I'm a young dad. There's lots of other things that I feel like I have experience and the ability to talk about a little bit. So I'm actually working on the next one. It's for college students. Be much the same idea. Just God help me, I'm a college student. Inspired by the fact that my youngest daughter is getting ready to graduate from high school and will be starting college in the fall. So there's my next deadline that I want to get it done by then. And then lots of other kind of ideas along these lines after the college student book. Then, think about for young husbands or for teachers or who knows where else we can go from there. But the beauty of it is there are lots of different groups of people that can use this kind of encouragement. So I hope that I get to be a part of that. And then I have been messing around with a novel for years. And what I'm hoping is that the process of doing this will help me eventually move in that direction and be able to work more on that. But the focus right now is on these God help me books.
I hear you. And I love the fact that it's developing into a series because you're right. This can be applied to so many different areas. And it's neat too, Jay, the way you're integrated it into your actual life. It's like, this is the journey. Okay,
Yeah.
my daughter's going off to college and my son is a father. I really, really love that. As far as, and congratulations on the novel too.
Thank
Now,
you.
and that's exciting. As far as, I love the writer's journey, and you've been helping people on that writer's journey yourself with your podcast. And I think it's really cool how this is all coming together for you. Can you talk about your podcast a little bit?
Sure. Love to. The Okie Bookcast is really just a conversation about books, and I say the bookish life of Oklahoma. So I twice a month interview authors, booksellers, publishers, lots of different people that are part of the book world, specifically connected to Oklahoma, for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm fascinated with the writing community that exists here. And secondly, because I think the world needs to know, sometimes when people think about Oklahoma, literary is not one of the first words that comes to mind. But the reality is we have a fantastic and robust history of authors, and some incredible people who are working in fields now. We have American Book Award winners, and we have bestsellers, and names that might be recognizable to lots of folks, but maybe not realize they came from here. And lots of people who are creating fantastic work, kind of under the radar. So they're independently published, or they're small press, or they just quite haven't had that moment yet. And I love being able to talk with those folks to let them tell their stories, let them talk about their work. But I also really want folks to meet them. So listeners get a chance not just to hear about, this is my book and this is what I write and this is how I do it, but we talk about everything from hunting Bigfoot to Oompa Loompas. I mean, we're kind of all over the place, because I'm convinced that the more we know these authors, the more we're invested in them, the more we're going to be interested in their books. So my mom, biggest Bookcast fan that there is, and every day that there's a release about 9:00 in the morning, I get a text from her, and she very seldom talks about the book. She always talks about the person. And to me, that's the goal. That's really the connection, that if she likes them, she's probably going to go check their book out, unless it's something that she's really not into. But that's really the goal, is to help listeners connect with these folks. And then I've had the joy over the last, I think it's 8 months now. My daughter is also an author, my older daughter. Mm-hmm. And she and I started a book chat show through the Bookcast, where we get together with a guest and just talk about what we're reading, and who might like it, and kind of who it's for, which is proven to be a ton of fun, just to get to hang out with her, talk with her. But we also get to bring in other authors and bookish folks who maybe aren't quite as connected to Oklahoma, to talk about books that they're into. So the goal there is, half dozen or a dozen or so books in about 50 minutes. And it varies so much that I can't imagine anybody listening and not finding at least one that they want to walk away with.
You're so right. There's some kind of creative energy in Oklahoma and the writing community. Yeah. It attracts too. And you and I met at WriterCon in Oklahoma City. That's right. Which it pulls people from all over the country. It's actually very central. So you got East Coasters and West Coasters, and people coming up from Texas and down from the northern states. So it really does just have that creative vibe here that I don't think you actually have in a lot of other areas where things are fast and bustling. It's like, you can relax here and you can write.
Well, and I think that's part of it. It's also, at least to me, it feels less competitive than in other places. And so you talk about WriterCon, the Oklahoma Writing Federation's having their conference in a couple of weeks. And when I'm around this writing community, it's not, I've yet to be in a conversation that was, well, I did this and I did this and I did this. It really is encouraging each other. They celebrate each other. There's just this community feel. And I think people are attracted to that because so much of the writing world is competitive. And if you're succeeding, then that means I'm not. And that's not true. But I don't think we always get that. But I feel like here, for whatever reason, and it may be the slower pace, and it may be that we fly under the radar a little bit. And so we don't have some of the pressures that exist in New York or California, places like that. But there's just this welcoming community that's really, it's great to have observed from the outside, as I've kind of been welcomed in as a an observer and recorder of it. But now that my books come out, it's also been fun to be kind of welcomed into that and watch people celebrating me and the work I'm doing, just like they do each other.
Yeah. And writers supporting other writers and realizing they're part of a community. I think that is probably one of the biggest messages to get out to writers, because often, especially new writers, they feel that they need to go off in their cabin in the woods and be far away from people and influences, but they don't realize that editors, other writers, beta readers, and people that can help them promote their books like you, podcasters, when you become part of this community and you find a support system, you're supporting them, they're supporting you, and that's a real magical thing. Can you tell us when it comes to supporting other writers, do you have any tips or advice that you would like to give to that writer who might feel that they need to be off in that cabin in the woods by themselves?
I think it's sometimes a challenge because some writers are really, really, really introverted. And so just taking that step to find a tribe is hard sometimes. Because they wouldn't do it in their normal life. And so then to do it as they're promoting something or, trying to ask for help, it's just unnatural. I will say I have found and I'm getting ready to say something that's going to feel very counterintuitive, but stay with me for a second. The social media community around writing can be an incredible gift. Now, it can also be, a cesspool, but both in podcasting and in writing, I have been able to find people who are incredibly supportive all over the world, who are, willing to read something for me or to get together and bounce ideas off of. And again, I think it's that elimination of competition. And, what I wouldn't do is go out on Twitter and say, hey, I'm a writer and I need to talk to somebody about, because you're going to get just blasted with advertisements and other kinds of folks. But what I found is participating in those communities, and not being concerned about promoting my own work, both in podcasting and in writing, but just going out and being a participant and talking to people and asking questions and having conversations. And then, oh, by the way, I also write, or I also podcast. I do these other things, and let those conversations, those relationships evolve. So much of everything that's on the internet is promotional. And so, people are only out there to talk about themselves, but everybody loves it when people talk about them. So when you can become a champion for somebody else, then you open that door, or just, you become interested in somebody else. You open that door for them to then become interested in you. That's how friendships are supposed to work. The problem is so much of what we do is so one direction, because of the nature of the medium. So figuring out how to undercut that, subvert that a little bit. But I would also, one of the really cool things, again, about Oklahoma, as we just continue to prop up where we live, the Oklahoma Writers Federation has dozens of small writing groups all over the place, and they are incredibly welcoming. It's not, it's not like you have to have 5 books published and you can be part of this group. You can literally just walk into the library on the day that they're meeting and sit down, and you're a part of the group. And you have the chance to meet tons of people, some of them exactly where you are, some of them a little bit further down the road, who can kind of say, yeah, you can get there. And maybe some who are a little bit further behind you, that then you can be that person that's encouraging them to move forward too. So that person who wants to go to the cabin in the woods, there's probably a time for that, but man, you got to come out every now and then and just take a look around and introduce yourself and connect. Because there's so much help and so much encouragement and just a lot of life and energy in working around other people.
Yeah. And the nice thing about social media and being online, to your point, is you can find your tribe. There is a lot of, unsavory characters out there, but how cool is it to find somebody on the other side of the world that shares your interest?
Yeah.
Or shares your passion and can help you. We didn't have that so long ago.
Right.
And then likewise, to your point, being able to connect in some of those small writers groups, that's something that I highly recommend too, because they'll help you along and answer some of those questions. And I think doing it in your terms of your comfort zone is really important as well.
Sure.
You're right. Writers are a lot of writers are introverted. Some of them are very extroverted. We run the spectrum, don't we? But don't feel like you have to step on that stage.
Right.
I work with writers all the time. It's like some of them don't want to do interviews, or they don't want to speak. It's like, okay, well, we can find other ways to promote yourself, because there's a lot of different modalities that are out there now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you a fun question, Jay.
Go for it.
And your answer cannot be Oprah. Okay.
Now I am fully intrigued. Let's go.
If you could hand your book to anybody in the world right now with a guarantee that they would actually take it and read it, not Oprah, who would you hand your book to?
Wow. Okay, this name just jumped into my head, so I'm going to go with it, because I would hand my book to Prince Harry. Because he's a young dad, right? And obviously he has some connections in the publishing world. But if the goal of this thing is to encourage young dads, I would love to have the opportunity, and it is. I would love to have the opportunity to have influence in the life of somebody who is really influential. Because you talk about somebody, you talk about pressure as a parent, to whatever he is at this point. I don't keep up with the royals, but to be able to put it in the hands of somebody like that, to say, listen, I don't know everything you're going through, but I know that there's a great way to be a dad. And I really would just want to encourage you. Hey, take this and run with it. Oprah would be fine too.
Well, Prince Harry could hand the book.
There you go. They're probably connected some. Yeah.
They're very, very tight.
So there it is. It's just that 6 degrees of separation. I'm going to get it to Oprah. I'm just going to do it through Prince Harry, because that'll happen.
Good answer. Okay. So give us your details. If people want to check out your podcasts, your books, the ones that are coming to, give us your website, your social media, give us all your beats.
So for the book, I've actually just launched my website. It's jhallwriter.com. And that's just the letter J, like you see on the screen there, JHALL writer.com. And you can buy the book there. I also, just a quick plug, I've had several folks who are connected to men's ministries, parent ministries, who are wanting to buy in bulk, and I'll absolutely do that and work with them. And so there's information on the website there about how to bulk order the book. For the podcast, it's okiebookcast.com, and it's OKIE bookcast.com. And then that's also my social media handle. So Oki Bookcast on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I made an effort at TikTok and realized that I was the wrong generation to do that successfully. So that's out there, but there's not much on it. And so okiebookcast.com, love to connect with folks online. And like we talked about, just find common interest and talk about books and writing and Oklahoma and fatherhood and pop culture and whatever else comes up.
Brilliant. Jay Hall, author of God Help Me, I'm a Young Dad. I love the way that rolls off the tongue, too.
We've said it before.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I appreciate it.
Desiree, thanks. This has been great. You
bet. And everybody, thank you for being here as well. You can find out more about us on our website. That is booksthatmakeyou.com. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Yep. We're on TikTok too. And of course, we're on YouTube. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. Never miss a Books That Make You show like this one. And if you go to the website, please do sign up for our Webby award-winning newsletter, and you'll get news and information delivered directly to your inbox on a monthly basis. Until next time, all of my bookish buddies, please enjoy all of the books that make you exactly who you are.
The host and executive producer of the Books That Make You show is Desiree Duffy. Sound mastering and engineering by Dave Napox. Social media and content promotion by Siddhi Jahagirdar. Copywriting and editing by Mike Robinson. The Books That Make You show is an award-winning podcast produced by Black Chateau Enterprises.